Sometimes, the most unforgettable days begin as nothing special at all. This was one of those days. The city outside was restless, the sky pale and cloudy, and inside a small gym, a few people pushed through their routines, unaware that something unexpected was about to happen. The old radio crackled softly in the corner, and the smell of sweat mixed with the faint scent of rubber mats. Everyone had their own struggles, their own stories. No one knew that by sunset, everything would feel different, like the air itself had changed. Keanu Reeves entered the gym so quietly that almost no one noticed. He kept his hood low, hands tucked in the pockets of his worn-out jacket, eyes fixed on the floor. He was just another figure slipping through the door, but there was a gentle heaviness in his steps, as if he carried something invisible on his shoulders. He loved coming to this place because here, among the clatter of weights and the rhythmic smack of gloves against bags, he could disappear. He could stop being the famous actor and just become someone searching for peace for a bit. Of normal. In the far corner, Ryan was training hard, lost in the rhythm of his punches. He was in his mid-20s, strong and quick, but there was always a cloud behind his eyes, a hunger to be seen, to be respected. Ryan's life had never been easy. He grew up feeling like he was never enough, always trying to prove himself in some way. He came to the gym every day, even when he was tired, hoping that every punch would bring him a little closer to the person he wanted to be. As Ryan watched Keanu move through his stretches, something inside him stirred. He did not recognize him at first, not really. Keanu was dressed simply, moving with a quiet grace, and kept mostly to himself. But Ryan felt a strange urge to test him, maybe to test himself. He needed to feel important, needed someone to notice that he was here, fighting for a place in the world. After a while, Ryan walked over and tossed his gloves near Keanu's feet. "Do you want to spar?" he asked, his voice trying to sound friendly but shaky with nerves and pride. For a moment, Keanu paused, surprised by the offer. He looked up, eyes calm and gentle, searching Ryan's face for a reason, maybe even for kindness. Then he nodded, always polite, and slowly stood up. As they stepped into the ring, the gym seemed to shrink around them. The other people glanced up, sensing something different about the two men. They started with light movements, circling each other, gloves up, breathing steady. Keanu was careful, every move thoughtful and measured. There was a quiet power about him, a stillness that made Ryan feel both challenged and nervous. But as the minutes passed, Ryan's heart began to race faster. He wanted to see what the quiet stranger could do, wanted to push him, maybe push himself past the feeling of always being invisible. Suddenly, Ryan threw a sharp punch, much harder than he meant to, and it landed right on Keanu's chin. The sound was sharp, echoing in the quiet space. The room froze. Even the radio seemed to go silent. For a split second, time stopped. Ryan's stomach twisted with regret. He had never hit someone that hard during sparring, especially not a stranger who showed no anger. He expected Keanu to lash out, to throw a punch back or storm out of the ring. But instead, Keanu only blinked, steadied himself, and managed a small, kind smile, the kind that forgives before you even ask. The people in the gym stared, tension thick in the air. Then, without warning, a deep, unmistakable voice cut through the silence. "Hey kid, that's enough." Heads turned as Sylvester Stallone stepped into the doorway, leaning against the wall with an easy confidence that came from years of both real and on-screen battles. His face was calm but serious, his gaze sharp but warm. Stallone walked over slowly, his footsteps soft but commanding. He put a reassuring hand on Ryan's shoulder and spoke in a low, gentle tone that carried across the gym. "Sometimes the strongest move is not to hit harder, but to show respect," Stallone said. "That's what real fighters do." For Ryan, it was like the weight of all his worries crashed down at once. His eyes filled with shame and surprise. He looked at Keanu, His words stuck in his throat, but the guilt was clear on his face. "I'm sorry," he managed to say, his voice almost a whisper. "I got carried away. I wanted to prove something." Keanu nodded, still steady, his smile a gentle reassurance. "It's okay." "Thank you for the round," he replied, his words soft and honest. Stallone looked at them both, then turned to the others in the gym. "Real strength is in kindness and in lifting each other up. If you want to be great, never forget that." In that moment, something shifted in the room. People went back to their workouts, but now they glanced at each other differently, as if remembering why they came here in the first place. Ryan helped Keanu off the mat, his own heart lighter and a little braver. He realized that respect mattered more than pride, and sometimes being seen was about being true to yourself, not just being tough. As the day faded and the last light left the gym, the lesson hung in the air. The strongest people are not always the loudest or the toughest. Sometimes they are the ones who choose forgiveness and kindness, even when it is hardest. As the hours passed and the gym emptied, the echo of what had happened still lingered in the air. Ryan sat quietly on the old wooden bench near the lockers, wiping sweat from his brow and staring at his own reflection in the mirror. He saw not just bruises on his face, but a storm of emotions inside: shame, regret, confusion. His fists rested on his knees, still trembling, not from the fight, but from the weight of what Stallone had said. His words echoed over and over. Real strength is in kindness. Outside the ring, Keanu moved with a quiet grace, gathering his things without hurry, as if time itself moved more gently around him. He did not look upset or angry. Instead, there was a calm in his face, a softness in his eyes, as if he had been through storms much worse than a single punch. He noticed Ryan sitting alone and, after a moment of hesitation, walked over and sat beside him. For a while, neither man spoke. The silence was heavy, but it was not cold or uncomfortable. There was something honest about it, as if words were not needed for two people to understand each other's pain. Finally, Keanu broke the silence with a question so simple and so deep that it caught Ryan off guard. "Why do you fight?" Keanu asked, his voice low and gentle, barely above a whisper. Ryan looked down at his hands, then shrugged. "I don't know," he admitted. "Sometimes I think it's because I want to be noticed. Sometimes I just want to feel strong for once in my life. But most of the time, I just feel like I'm always fighting with myself." Keanu listened quietly, nodding, never judging. His eyes held stories. Ryan could only guess at stories of loneliness, of struggle, of searching for meaning beyond the surface of things. Keanu leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and said, "Everyone is fighting something, even if you can't see it. But the real fight is not in the ring. It's in how you treat others, and how you treat yourself." As Keanu spoke, Ryan felt the tightness in his chest slowly begin to ease. It was strange. He had met a movie star, sparred with him, even landed a punch he wished he could take back, and yet, in this quiet moment, all the fame and glory faded away. There was only the simple truth that kindness mattered more than strength, and that sometimes forgiveness was harder than any punch. The gym owner, an older man named Malik, stepped out from his office, holding 2 bottles of water. He handed one to Ryan and one to Keanu, giving them both a look that was half stern, half proud. "Good fighters learn from their mistakes," Malik said. "But great fighters learn to forgive and to move forward." As the three of them sat together, the conversation slowly drifted from fighting to life, from struggle to hope. Ryan shared stories of his childhood, of growing up in a small apartment with a mother who worked double shifts, of being bullied at school for being quiet and skinny, and how he promised himself he would never let anyone see him as weak again. Keanu listened to every word, never interrupting, just letting Ryan's story unfold, piece by piece. Then Keanu told a story of his own. He spoke of lonely nights in strange cities, of losing people he loved, and of learning to keep moving, even when everything felt hopeless. I learned that being alone doesn't mean you have to be lonely, Keanu said softly. Sometimes, the people you meet for just a moment can change your whole life. As the gym lights dimmed and the last few stragglers left, a sense of peace settled over Ryan. He realized he was not as alone as he thought. There were people in the world who understood, who cared, even when it felt like nobody saw him. And for the first time, he felt the courage to let go of his pride, just a little outside. The evening air was cool and fresh. Ryan walked with Keanu to the edge of the parking lot. The street was quiet, lights glowing in the distance. Ryan stopped, took a deep breath, and turned to Keanu. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely steady. "Not just for the spar, for listening." Keanu smiled, his eyes bright with a kindness that needed no words. "Thank you for being honest. That takes more courage than any fight." As they said goodbye, Ryan felt something shift inside him. The regret and shame he carried were lighter, now replaced by a strange hope. Maybe he could be more than just a fighter. Maybe he could be someone who lifted others up, who found strength and kindness, even when it was hard. As Keanu disappeared into the night, Ryan stood for a long time, staring at the empty street, the world suddenly full of new possibilities. He made a silent promise to himself to keep fighting, but for the right reasons this time. Not to prove his worth to others, but to prove to himself that he could be strong and gentle at the same time. The next morning, Ryan woke up feeling different. It was a quiet feeling, not loud or sudden, but something deep inside that refused to fade. He stared at the cracks in his bedroom ceiling, listening to the gentle sound of rain tapping the window. It should have been just another day. Wake up, eat breakfast, train at the gym, push through the routine. But after last night, the routine felt less like a trap and more like a question. What do I really want from this life? As he got ready, Ryan moved slowly, remembering every detail of his talk with Keanu. There was something healing in the memory, like a warm light shining through a window he didn't know was there. For so long, Ryan had let anger and pride guide his path, pushing away people who tried to get close. But in that brief conversation with Keanu, and even in the gentle wisdom of Stallone's words, he had seen another way, a way where strength wasn't just about power, but about patience, respect, and listening. His mother was already up, humming softly as she poured tea in the small kitchen. She glanced at Ryan, noticing the thoughtful look on his face. "You look like you're carrying the whole world," she said softly, her eyes full of concern and love. Ryan tried to smile, but his voice came out quieter than he meant. "I think I'm just tired, Mom, but I'm all right." Deep inside, he wanted to tell her about everything, the fight, the punch, the embarrassment, and the strange, healing peace that came after. But the words wouldn't form, not yet. Maybe soon, he thought. When his heart was ready. At the gym, the mood felt different. People who had witnessed the scene yesterday nodded at Ryan as he walked in, but not with the old sense of challenge or competition. Instead, there was a quiet respect, as if they too had been changed by what happened. Malik, the gym owner, waved him over with a grin. "You're early today," he said. "That's the sign of someone who wants to learn." Ryan joined Malik by the ring, watching as he wrapped his hands with slow, practiced movements. "Do you ever feel like you're fighting the wrong battles?" Ryan asked suddenly. Malik stopped and looked at him, eyes gentle. "Every day, at first. Until I learned that real battles are not with fists, but with fear. You fight to become better, not to become bitter. When you understand that, training becomes more than exercise. It becomes healing." These words landed deep, echoing what Ryan had heard from Keanu the night before. For the first time, Ryan let himself believe it might be true, that maybe, just maybe, he could choose what kind of man he wanted to be. Later that day, as he trained, Ryan noticed something unusual. There was a new face at the gym, a young woman with serious eyes and a determined look. She kept to herself, working quietly in the corner, punching the bag with careful focus. Ryan watched her for a while, remembering how it felt to be new, to feel invisible. He noticed some of the others whispering, a few making quiet jokes about how girls can't fight. The old Ryan might have ignored it, maybe even joined in, desperate to fit in. But today, something stopped him. The memory of Keanu's kindness and Stallone's words held him steady. He took a deep breath, walked over to the group and said, "Everyone deserves respect here. We're all fighting our own battles. Let her train." The others fell quiet, surprised by Ryan's voice and the new strength in his eyes. A few nodded in agreement. The young woman looked at Ryan, a small smile flickering across her face. It was a simple thing, but for her, it meant everything. When the gym closed that evening, Ryan felt lighter. He realized that the pain and regret from yesterday were slowly being replaced by pride. Not the pride that comes from being better than someone else, but the pride that comes from doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Before leaving, Malik called Ryan over. "You changed something today," Malik said quietly. "Never forget how powerful that can be." As Ryan stepped out into the cool night air, he looked up at the sky, the city lights soft and far away. He understood now that real strength wasn't just about winning fights or earning respect with bruises and sweat. It was about choosing to be kind, about lifting others up, even when no one was watching. He knew the journey ahead would not be easy, and the battles inside would still come and go. But now, Ryan carried something new with him, a lesson learned not just from pain, but from forgiveness, humility, and the quiet power of kindness. The days that followed seemed quieter, but beneath the calm surface, everything was changing. Ryan noticed it first in himself. Each morning, he woke with a mix of nerves and hope, unsure what the day would bring, but willing to face it with a little more courage than before. He had not forgotten the sting of regret from the spar with Keanu, nor the echo of Stallone's gentle rebuke. Those moments replayed in his mind, not as punishments, but as signposts, pointing towards something better. As the week unfolded, small things around the gym began to shift. It started with Ryan choosing patience instead of frustration, not only in his training but with everyone he met. One evening, he saw a young boy struggling with the jump rope, his cheeks red with embarrassment as others snickered from the sidelines. Ryan walked over, knelt beside the boy, and with a soft voice, showed him how to find a rhythm. The boy's eyes widened in gratitude, and when he finally got it right, his shy smile seemed to light up the whole gym. Ryan felt a quiet pride, not for his own skill, but for having given someone else a piece of hope. Word spread quickly. Soon, people began to approach Ryan not just as a tough fighter, but as someone they could trust. Even Malik, who had watched hundreds come and go, started inviting Ryan to help new members settle in, seeing in him a leader who led with gentleness, not fear. One evening, as Ryan was about to leave, he found a note in his locker. It was written in neat, careful handwriting. "Thank you for standing up for me," it said. "I almost quit after the first day, but you made me feel welcome. I hope one day I can do the same for someone else." Ryan knew it was from the young woman he had defended, and for the first time in a long while, he realized how far a single act of kindness could reach. But life, as always, held its share of surprises. On a rainy Friday night, just as Ryan was finishing a late workout, the door swung open and Keanu Reeves walked in again. The gym was quieter than usual, the rain outside drumming steadily against the windows. Ryan watched as Keanu moved through his exercises, alone and focused, his presence somehow both calming and electric. After a while, Keanu walked over to Ryan and greeted him with the same quiet warmth as before. "You look stronger, Keanu," said, not meaning just in muscle or speed, but something deeper. Ryan smiled, feeling a strange shyness. As if he were speaking to an old friend who knew all his secrets, they talked for a long time. Not about movies or fame, but about the small things that made life worth living, childhood memories, moments of fear and doubt, the comfort of a mother's hug after a hard day. Ryan found himself opening up, sharing stories he had never told anyone. There was no need for masks or bravado. In Keanu's presence, honesty felt safe. As the conversation drifted, Keanu said something that Ryan would never forget. "You know, we all mess up," he said, his voice steady and calm. "But every day gives us another chance to be better. The world doesn't need more tough guys. It needs people who can turn their pain into something good." These words landed in Ryan's heart like gentle rain, washing away old scars and planting something new, an idea that he could be a source of healing, not just for himself, but for others. The gym door opened again, and to everyone's shock, Sylvester Stallone stepped inside, umbrella in hand, rain dripping from his jacket. He smiled when he saw Ryan and Keanu together. "Look at you two," Stallone said, laughter in his voice. "Teaching the world how to fight for the right reasons." The three of them sat together on the worn-out bench, their conversation wandering through stories of hardship, resilience, and the quiet victories that never made headlines. For a moment, the world outside, the rain, the rush, the noise seemed very far away. Inside, there was only the gentle bond of three people who understood the real meaning of strength. As the night grew late, Stallone stood and offered a parting thought. "Never underestimate the ripple of one good deed," he said. "Sometimes that's all it takes to change someone's life." After they left, Ryan sat alone for a long time, the gym dark and silent. He thought about everything he had learned. Since that first painful punch, the regret, the forgiveness, the small acts of kindness that had quietly changed him. And as he walked home in the rain, feeling the water run down his face, he knew he was not just stronger in body, but in spirit. 2. He carried hope now, not only for himself, but for anyone who might need it next. The days rolled by, and with each sunrise, Ryan felt himself changing in ways he could not have imagined just weeks before. The gym was no longer just a place to prove himself. It had become a second home, a safe space where real growth happened, not just in muscle and technique, but in the heart. Each face that walked through those doors carried a story, and Ryan had begun to notice the quiet suffering in others, the silent hope hidden behind tough eyes and brave smiles. One Saturday afternoon, the gym was alive with energy. Malik had arranged a friendly tournament, inviting fighters from all over the neighborhood to compete, not just for prizes, but for the simple joy of sharing what they loved. The crowd was bigger than usual, voices echoing off the walls, laughter, and shouts mingling with the rhythmic sound of gloves against bags. Ryan felt the old nerves rising inside him, but this time they were different, not about fear or pride, but a quiet excitement, a sense of being part of something bigger. As the matches went on, Ryan watched others closely, seeing not just technique but the struggles they carried. He saw the young boy he had once helped with jump rope, now standing tall, grinning shyly as his mother clapped from the edge of the ring. He saw the young woman he'd encouraged, throwing careful jabs, her focus fierce, her eyes full of determination. Every victory, every defeat, was met with cheers, pats on the back, and gentle words of encouragement. For the first time, Ryan realized how a community could become family, how strangers could become friends when kindness led the way. Then, just before the final match, Malik approached Ryan with a soft smile. "I want you to fight in the last round," he said. "Not to win, but to show everyone what respect in the ring looks like. I think you're ready." Ryan's heart pounded. He nodded, accepting the challenge. As he stepped into the ring, the noise of the crowd faded, replaced by a calm he hadn't known before. His opponent was a tough, seasoned fighter, someone who had a reputation for being ruthless and never holding back. But as they touched gloves, Ryan looked into the man's eyes and saw something familiar. A flicker of doubt, the same fear he had carried for so long. The match began. At first, the crowd roared as punches flew and feet danced across the mat. Ryan focused on his breath, remembering everything he had learned about patience and control. He took a few hard hits, felt the sting of sweat in his eyes, but instead of reacting with anger, he let each moment slow down, finding strength and staying calm. He remembered Keanu's words about turning pain into something good, about fighting not to prove worth, but to share hope. Halfway through, Ryan's opponent landed a hard blow to his ribs. For a moment, old instincts screamed at him to fight back harder, to strike out and defend his pride. But then he caught himself. He steadied his breath, nodded in respect to his opponent, and waited for the next move, offering a silent promise that this fight would not end in anger. The crowd noticed. Something changed in the air, a hush that fell over the gym as both fighters began to move with a new kind of grace, trading blows, but never crossing the line into cruelty. Every time one stumbled, the other offered a hand to help them back up. Every round ended with a nod, a smile, a shared respect. In the final seconds, the match ended in a draw. No winner was announced, but the applause was louder than ever. Ryan's opponent pulled him into a hug and whispered, "Thank you for reminding me what real strength looks like." As Ryan stepped out of the ring, he found himself surrounded by friends, old and new. Malik clapped him on the shoulder. The young woman he'd encouraged gave him a proud nod. The young boy grinned and shouted his name. For a moment, Ryan felt a powerful sense of belonging, a deep pride that had nothing to do with victory or fame, but everything to do with being true to himself. Then, to his surprise, he saw Keanu and Stallone standing at the back of the crowd, both smiling with quiet approval. Keanu gave Ryan a thumbs up, while Stallone called out, "That's how it's done, kid." As the gym emptied and the day faded into evening, Ryan helped clean up, sweeping the floor and stacking chairs with the others. The lights flickered softly overhead, and there was laughter and gentle teasing all around. It was in these simple moments, after the fight, after the noise, after the spotlight faded, that Ryan felt the real meaning of strength. He saw how much could change in a short time, how many lives could be touched by a single act of kindness, a word of encouragement, a simple refusal to give up. As he walked home that night, the air cool and calm, Ryan thought about the journey he had taken. He remembered the first painful punch, the sting of regret, the comfort of forgiveness, and the small ripples of kindness that kept spreading. He realized he was no longer fighting to be noticed or feared. He was fighting to be kind, to help others find their strength, and to remind them that even the smallest good deed could change the world. The months that followed were a quiet transformation for Ryan. The gym had become more than just a place to train, was a sanctuary, a home, and a place where broken pieces began to heal. Every day brought new challenges, new moments of doubt and hope. Ryan learned that growth was not a straight path, but a winding road filled with setbacks and small victories. Some days were hard when old fears crept back, or when the weight of the world pressed down too heavily. But now he faced those days with a courage he never thought he had. One rainy evening, as the sky darkened and the city lights blurred through the wet glass, Ryan sat alone on the bench in the empty gym. The silence wrapped around him like a blanket, comforting yet heavy. He traced the worn edges of his gloves, thinking of everything that had brought him here, the lonely nights, the sting of failure, the unexpected kindness of strangers who became friends. Keanu's single quotes, S-words echoed in his mind. "We all mess up, but every day gives us another chance to be better." Those words had become a mantra, a light in the darkness. Ryan realized that strength wasn't about never falling, it was about having the courage to get up again, and to help others do the same. As he stood to leave, the door creaked open, and in walked Keanu. The two shared a quiet smile, the kind that holds the weight of shared understanding. Keanu sat beside Ryan, and for a moment, they just listened to the rain tapping on the roof, the peaceful rhythm matching the steady beat of their hearts. "You've come a long way," Keanu said softly. "Not because you fought harder, but because you chose kindness when it was hardest. That is real strength." Ryan nodded, feeling tears prick his eyes. "I never thought I could be like this. I thought I had to be tough, angry, alone. But now I see that I'm stronger when I'm open, when I let people in." Keanu smiled. "It's not easy, but it's worth it." Just then, the gym door opened again, and Sylvester Stallone stepped inside, carrying a bag of boxing gear. He grinned, his eyes sparkling with warmth and pride. "Looks like the family's growing," Stallone joked, settling next to them. Three men talked late into the night, about life, about loss, about hope, and the quiet battles that never make the news. Stallone shared stories of his own struggles, the times he wanted to give up but didn't. Keanu spoke of finding peace in unexpected places. And Ryan, once lost and angry, now found his voice in the space between them. Before leaving, Stallone stood and placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Remember this moment," he said, "because the world needs more people who fight with their hearts." As the first light of dawn began to seep through the windows, Ryan felt a calm resolve settle inside him. The journey was far from over. There would be storms ahead, days when fear and doubt returned. But now he had learned the most important lesson of all, that true strength comes not from fighting others, but from fighting for kindness, for respect, and for the hope that lives in every human heart. He looked out at the waking city, breathing in the cool morning air, ready to carry that lesson forward. Not just for himself, but for everyone who needed to believe that, no matter how hard life hits, we all have the strength to rise again.